In yesterday's video on this topic, I talked about some of the insights and signs, markers of the experience of the insight connected to knowledge, connected to enlightenment. These markers included, for example, the reversals of inside and outside, the sense not of being the one who was aware of the outside world, but the one who was, in fact, in a sense, the object of awareness. But I wanted to add, because this is rather critical, that what also marks such experiences of knowledge is the sense of clarity, peace, effortlessness, and freedom that arise with them. Those are the markers that kind of validate the insight, right? Because one is having the insight that frees one, that is freedom. So the freedom has to be there. The freedom has to accompany, be one facet of the satori or insight experience. Otherwise, what's the point? And this freedom has to be of the character that it was there all along. Even if one later loses or that insight is obscured again, still the insight itself would have that notion. Or another way of looking at the feelings that should mark or validate these insights, it is simply the traditional definition of self or Brahman in Vedanta, Satchidananda, being, awareness, bliss, right? So those ought to be, in some sense, the profound feelings one has if and when the insights connected to knowledge arise. Now, on the one hand, I would say don't get attached to these insights. But on the other hand, I would say when these insights are quote unquote active, there's no one to get attached or not attached. When the insights are obscured or hidden again, if that's what happens, then in fact one has to perform quote unquote self-inquiry or surrender, which will in fact bring up those insights again. When those insights are active, when knowledge is active, it burns more and more of the ignorance. And as one goes back and forth between quote unquote knowledge and ignorance, or these insights and ignorance, the question might arise, who's going through these insights and coming back to ignorance? Which is exactly the right question. Of course, when the insights are activated, it turns out quite clearly that there's nobody going through this process. That this process is itself illusory or imaginary. When one is quote unquote out of the insight, then the question of who's going through the insight will bring one back to the insight. And at some point, if that question of who is going back and forth is asked profoundly enough, the resultant insight will at a certain point in the course of its development, flash and become permanent, become stable.